Hello and welcome to another HanDrinksSolo wine info video, and today we are talking about the Snow Mountain Pinot Noir 2021 made by winemaker James McKenzie. Now only 1,400 bottles of this particular wine was made, mostly because the fruit is harvested from fairly low yielding vines planted in the foothills of the Winterhoek Mountains in the Tulbagh Valley. In winter, these mountains are covered with snow, which means that the temperatures plummet and allow those vines to get the real proper dormancy that they need in order to rest up before the next growing season. It's also worth noting that these elevated vineyard sites up in the foothills enjoy a much higher diurnal range than perhaps those down on the valley floor. That is to say, they have a much bigger difference between the day temperatures and the night temperatures. Now, if you've been to a wine tasting anywhere in the South African winelands recently, you will no doubt have heard a winemaker or perhaps a tasting room manager say something along the lines of, and of course this high diurnal range makes for better wine. Now, depending on how deeply you're into the wine tasting, you may just nod and say,
yeah, that makes sense.
But you might also go,
wait, why?
Why does a high diurnal range, or a big difference between day temperature and night temperature, correlate with higher quality wine? I find it easiest to answer this question by referencing the age-old fable of the tortoise and the hare, wherein a really slow tortoise somehow, against all odds, manages to beat a rather speedy hare in a race. But this is mostly because this cocky little rabbit decides to race for a bit and then take a nap. And during his nap, the slow and steady tortoise overtakes him and ends up winning the race. Now, and stick with me on this, imagine if this race is in fact a metaphor for the journey of sugar ripeness that every grape must go on before it can be picked and made into wine. And if you'll allow me to add one more complication, imagine if this race to sugar ripeness is in fact a race that you want to lose. You want to finish this slowly, because slower ripening times make the wine better. And if you'd like to ask me,
wait, why?
There's two reasons. First of all, because longer ripening periods allow more time for a complex set of flavor and aroma precursors to develop in the grapes. The second reason is that it also allows phenolic ripeness to catch up with sugar ripeness so that they both end at the same time, just as the grapes are about to be harvested. Back to the tortoise and the hare. Let's imagine that cool climate grapes are like the tortoise. Their sugar ripening journey is fairly slow and steady. And for the most part, sugar ripening tracks alongside phenolic ripening towards the point where they're ready to be picked. Now, grapes in warmer growing regions are more like hares in that they sprint their race all the way to the finish, and sugar ripening happens in double quick time, usually far before phenolic ripeness has had time to catch up. That is to say, far before the skins and stems in grapes have had time to ripen. This means you get a grape that might be full of sugar, but still has green stems and green seeds which taste tannic and astringent, and that makes for weird wine. But to return to our story of the tortoise and the hare, there is a third category, and that is grapes in warm climate with a high diurnal range. In this particular category, the journey to sugar ripeness is characterized by grapes sprinting that journey during the day when temperatures are high, but then sugar ripeness takes a nap at night when the temperatures plummet. And then when daytime comes and temperatures climb, sugar ripeness sprints ahead and then takes a nap at night when temperatures plummet. All the while, phenolic ripeness is tracking along slowly and steadily, because phenolic ripeness, that is ripeness of seeds and stems, doesn't nap at all. And to refer back to the story, as we know, this napping means that the hare finishes his race in a far longer time than he otherwise would have. But of course, as we've said, this is a race you want to finish slowly. So as sugar ripening sprints and then naps, phenolic ripening catches up. Then sugar ripening sprints ahead in a warm day, and then phenolic ripeness catches up at night. The end result is, of course, that phenolic ripeness and sugar ripeness, even in a warm region, can end at the same time, which is ideal because you have sugar levels that are healthy and also ripe seeds and stems, which makes for higher quality wine. But enough with the competitive forest animals. Let's see what the wine is like in the glass. Well, first up, it's worth noting that this is not a typical Pinot Noir nose, but then again, Tulbagh is not exactly a typical Pinot Noir region. There is some fairly intense black cherry fruit with good depth, but really what impresses me is this array of complicators over the top of that black cherry fruit. There's white pepper, star anise, There's some really salted game element going on, and then oak-inspired cedarwood notes, and of course some slightly more classic mushrooms. You might be forgiven for thinking that this Pinot Noir was in fact masquerading as a lighter styled Shiraz because of all that black fruit and white pepper. But when we take a sip, well, it's then that the Pinot character comes to the fore a little more. Because while we may have smelt black cherry or plum on the nose, the palate is full of some really quite tart red cherry acidity and even a bit of juicy citrus. These elements are definitely far more Pinot Noir than Shiraz. Of course, that mushroom note also follows through onto the palate, giving it that Pinot Noir signature. And there's enough grippy tannin on the finish just to make sure that you're paying attention. Okay, so that's all we have time for today. But if you enjoyed today's video, then consider subscribing to the HanDrinksSolo YouTube channel, where we publish 6 videos each month talking about wine history, wine science, unusual cultivars, and some of the dynamic South African winemakers coming out of the Cape wine.